I have evidence of more than 25 fires, and I'm getting more each day. Keep asking Mr. Bennett, how many more fires do I have to show him have occurred before he will do something?
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sharon Noble, Director of the Coalition to Stop Smart Meters in B.C. Welcome to the Goddard Report, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Jim. Glad to be here.
Another devastating report from the Coalition. You said you have a picture of a fire caused by a smart meter and you have sent it to the B.C. Minister in charge of smart meters?
This isn't the first picture. I've sent him a few, but the one that I sent out in my update last night shows the meter completely melted on the side of a house. This was a house that suffered a minor fire that went up the side of the house, and it was caught by the owner before it got out of hand. Otherwise, it would have been another destroyed home. And the owner took a picture of the meter before it was taken by Hydro. The meter was taken by Hydro before the inspector got there. So I have a report from the BC Safety Authority saying that even though they were called in to look at what happened, the meter was not there when they arrived. So they have no way of determining what the problem is. But you can clearly see that the meter is melted and the darkening going up the side of the home. This is only the most recent photo and fire report that I've sent to Greg Reimer, Energy Minister Bill Bennett, to John Horgan, to Christy Clark, to everyone. And to date, I have not received an acknowledgement from anyone.
Is it very frustrating when they say there's no evidence that smart meters cause fires, yet you send them the evidence and there's no acknowledgement of it?
That's frustrating, but what's even more frustrating is that the media. You happen to be just about the only one who covers it. I send this out widely, and for some reason, the media is covering it up too. I'm not sure why. I have evidence of more than 25 fires, and I'm getting more each day. As I've said in my updates, it takes a long time to get the evidence because the bureaucracy is so twisted. Nobody is tracking, so I have to go from agency to agency to agency to get the information. So it's taking me a long time, but I've already got it on about 25 fires. Why? How many more do we need? I keep asking Mr. Bennett, how many more fires do I have to show him have occurred before he will do something? I sent out an email to him on Monday. He received it Monday morning with 6 fires. And I told him, I've got many more. Please tell me, how many more do you want information about? And I get no response whatsoever. From him, from John Horgan, from Christy Clark, from Greg Reimer, who is the head of the Smart Meter program at Hydro, or from any of the media people.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that there's a cover-up going on. I am not a conspiracy theorist by nature, but this is just too coincidental that no one in British Columbia, the public is not being told what's happening. No one is stepping up. When I met with Mr. Dix about 3 weeks ago, he told me he didn't believe the information that I'd provided. He thought that I was biased. And I said, yes, I'm biased on behalf of the citizens of British Columbia. I've got evidence, and I'm not creating it. What do you think is happening here? And he would not acknowledge it. And that was face to face. So I'm not real sure what we do. We have to get the word out here. Why is it that Saskatchewan stopped their smart meter program and are removing smart meters from homes after 8 fires? I don't know what more I have to do.
In fact, a 9th fire was reported in Saskatchewan, and the premier there said, see, we've made the right decision to remove these meters because there's still a threat.
That's right. And in fact, he said that he wanted it speeded up. He wanted removal speeded up.
It's too bad Brad Wall doesn't run here.
Man, yes. And I've even written to the NDP in Saskatchewan, who were so instrumental in getting the smart meter stopped in Saskatchewan. I've written to them and I said, please, would you contact John Horgan and Adrian Dix in BC and tell them what you found and what you're doing? I don't know if he has. He didn't respond either. The fact of the matter is, Jim, that fires are happening probably regularly, and the only way I find out about them is if one of the victims calls me and tells me or sends me an email, and that does happen, whether an insider calls me from Hydro or an electrician, and that happens, or if I get a newspaper article And I look at I read it, and something sounds strange. That the fire started outside the home, that it started in the garage, that it was termed to be electrical. Those are the ones I follow up on. How many others are happening that I don't know about?
How does the government explain these fires?
They don't. They don't respond. They say they haven't happened. They say that there have been no smart meter fires. Despite the fact that I send them evidence. I have evidence from BC Hydro itself, from their internal reports. I have evidence from the BC Safety Standards reports. And I have evidence from the Fire Commissioner reports. And they don't respond. They just pretend it doesn't exist. It isn't occurring. And what's more concerning, well, not more, but equally frustrating, and I think that the citizens of British Columbia should be outraged. I had suspected for a long time that BC Hydro was paying for these claims because the insurance companies are not saying anything. An insurance company is there to make profits. And if there is a danger, whether it's drugs or whatever, they will make sure that they do not have this risk on their books. They will waive it. They will make sure there are changes. And the insurance companies have not said word one about smart meters. So I suspected that they're not losing any money. The only way that could be prevented from happening is if Hydro or Itron paid for all of the claims for the damages occurred. And I've been asking Hydro for records pertaining to anything that they've paid on behalf of people who have suffered damages. And they have refused. I've asked since February for this information, and I have been stonewalled. I've gone to the Privacy Commissioner, and she is now supposedly helping get some information, but I haven't heard anything about it. But I did receive a report that I shared with everyone on my updates from the Fire Commissioner and from the BC Safety Authority, in which it was admitted that a fire occurred in Coquitlam in 2012. It was caused by a smart meter, and BC Hydro paid for the repairs. That's in writing on an official report. Hydro is using our money to pay for repairs for these dangerous devices that are being put on our homes.
We'll have more with Sharon Noble right after this.
More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking to Sharon Noble, Director of the Coalition to Stop Smart Meters in BC. One of the studies you've cited in the past done by a famous Montreal physician and researcher, the one that found that low-level radiation can mutate cells, make them perhaps cancerous?
Oh, there are many studies who have done that, many scientists who have done that. One of the, someone who did it started about 30 years ago and found that low levels of exposure to microwave radiation like that from cell phones or smart meters is Dr. Henry Lai out of the University of Washington. Also Dr. Martin Blank, Dr. Panagopoulos out of Greece. There are many who have replicated these studies that show prolonged exposure to levels that are far lower than are allowed by Safety Code 6. The standards that are set by Health Canada cause DNA to mutate. And they've now figured out what causes it. This is fairly recent. In 2011, as I've told you many times, the World Health Organization's IARC, the International Agency for Radiation Protection, Research on Cancer. That's a different IARC, Agency for Research on Cancer, determined that there was enough evidence to classify radiation from wireless devices as a 2B carcinogen. The same classification as lead, mercury, DDT, HIV. And at that time, they did it as a 2B at that level because they said they didn't understand the causation. They didn't know why it happened. They could see it did, and many scientists said they thought that was sufficient to call it a 2A, which is probable, or a 1 that is a definite carcinogen. But now, since 2011, there have been several studies that have been done and replicated showing that what's happening is that this radiation, this pulsing radiation, stresses the walls of our cells and makes them permeable. That means that things like radiation and some of the toxins that are in our blood can get into our cells, and they put stress on the cells until the walls leak. When the toxins get into the cells, the DNA can be damaged. And they believe this is what is causing cancer. And the cancer is not limited. We hear most often about brain cancer associated with cell phones. But there's many different types of cancers. Cancers are increasing dramatically, and no one in Canada, no agency is tracking them. We've been trying to run down to see if there is anybody, any agency that is tracking cancers, because we keep hearing that the Cancer Society says that the number of cancers is decreasing. But that's counter to what we're hearing from doctors, from oncologists, who say that they're seeing more and more patients with very bizarre cancers, and especially with young people with leukemia and brain cancer. And we believe that we need to have pressure put on the government or the cancer societies to somehow track these cancers. Because if we don't know what's happening, then we can't counter all of the industry statements saying that there's absolutely no increase in cancer. It makes it very, very difficult.
Well, perhaps the reason mainstream media doesn't report things like this is look at how many hydro ads you see on global television, for example, featuring their weatherman. Yep. They don't want to lose that revenue, do they?
Also, many of the media outlets are owned by telecommunication companies. You know, some are by Rogers, by Bell. These people make their money off wireless devices, whether it's cell phones, whether it's radio stations, whatever. They make their money off wireless devices. And telecommunication companies are the ones who are trying to make us believe that there's no harm. They're not going to put money out there and allow reports that are counter to their profit level to be exposed. I'm convinced that these corporations, like Bell and like Rogers, are passing word on that this stuff is not supposed to be, pushed. There are very few people out there, very few journalists who are, following this regularly. There have been a few who write, articles every once in a while, but nothing is happening regularly. And it's got to be either the advertising budget, as you say, which is important, or the pressure from head office. Something has to explain this.
Well, I've worked for those big companies, and I have had memos from the head office not telling me not what to run, but what stories I have to run.
Yeah?
Yeah, so it happens.
Yeah, and what's equally frustrating is when they do publish a story. For instance, Michael Smith from the province wrote a story, an article, in response to my fire report that I sent out in August. He interviewed someone who had had a fire, a smart meter fire, that was reported nowhere. The fire commissioner didn't have a report. It wasn't on Hydro's report. BC Safety Authority didn't have it. But this fellow had pictures, and he had witnesses. So he spoke with Michael Smith, and Michael wrote the whole thing. But at the end of the article, he had to, I guess, to balance it out, interview Hydro. And of course, Hydro said this never occurred. Nope, they've never had any fires. So, that's the way it stands. Every time any information gets out there, it's refuted. Recently with Ted Olenek, about cutting power off to people. This 71-year-old woman up in near Comox Valley who had her power cut off because she refused to pay for the legacy fees, the extortion. He said, we have to treat everybody equally. This woman spent, 3 hours being interviewed, telling how she was being discriminated against, how she was being treated in a horrible way, how she was being charged fees that her neighbors who have smart meters that are read manually are not being charged fees. But then Ted Olenek gets on and said, they had to cut her power because everyone has to be treated equally. And that's where it stood. That was the last line. The last line should have been, Ted Olenek is full of it. BC Hydro is not treating everybody equally in any regard. The fires are happening. Extortion fees are being charged to people with legacy meters. This is the truth. This is what's happening in British Columbia. And, Jim, you're the only one who's consistently getting the information out there. Well, many people call, and they try to get information. For instance, many people right now are getting these failed installation charges, $65, when Hydro says that they came to their house to exchange their expired meter, and they say that nobody was home. Yet many people are writing me and writing Hydro and saying, look, I was home. I don't go anywhere all day long. I was waiting for Hydro to come because you told me he would be coming in the next 2 weeks. I stayed home every day. Nobody knocked at my door. Hydro said that someone would knock at my door and tell me they were there. And they said, well, You have to pay the $65 or we're turning your power off. What company ever is able to charge you a fee without proof that a service was performed? These people don't know that Hydro ever came or Corix ever came and tried to change the meter. No one knocked at the door. Nobody left any sign on the door. And one woman was sent a photo of her meter, saying this photo is proof that you have a cover on your meter. Well, she had taken the meter cover off 2 weeks before because she was told that the people would be coming and needed access. She took the cover off. So the picture was taken before supposedly the attempt to change the meter occurred. They don't care. They just lie, and they're threatening you pay the $65 or we're turning your power off.
Has the ombudsman looked into any of this?
The ombudsperson isn't responding. They say that there's nothing they can do. BCUC has decided the fees and there's nothing they can do. Just like the other agencies, I believe that the government has ordered that no one get involved. They've ordered BCUC, the BC Utilities Commission, the agency that's responsible for protecting us from hydro and from actions like this. They can't get involved, even with rates. They refuse to get involved with rates, even though Bill Bennett said that's the only thing they could get involved with. BCUC refuses to look at these legacy fees again. The BC Safety Authority, who's responsible for making sure that the Safety Standards Act is followed. For instance, nothing should be removed from a fire scene until the inspector has been able to do his job. When I reported to BC Safety Standards that meters are being removed from the scenes of the fires before the inspector gets there, they told me that normally they would follow that up, but they have been ordered to not do anything. They cannot be involved in any aspect of the smart meter program. They can't tell anybody if there's been a smart meter fire that they know about. They can't tell anybody if BC Hydro is breaking rules, and BC Hydro has broken many of the regulations. Removing a meter from the fire scene of a fire is just one, and BC Safety Standards can't do anything about it because they've been ordered not to. I suspect the same thing has happened with the ombudsperson. They haven't told me, but their reactions speak for themselves. Their responses speak for themselves. They are not willing to get involved. So it's up to us. It's up to us, the people. We have to inform the people about what's happening, that they have fires on their homes, and people have to go to their MLAs, regardless of the party, whether it's NDP or Liberal, or even if it's Weaver, who is the Green Party. Go there and demand that they take action on our behalf. Don't let them brush you off and say, oh, well, that's Bill Bennett's or Adrian Dix's territory. Write to Adrian Dix and Bill Bennett, too, but go to your MLA and demand that they do their job. They're getting paid to protect us. That's the only way things are going to change. This province is completely hamstrung by the Liberals.
Sharon, is there a website people can go to find out more about the coalition, or if they have any concerns that they can send to you?
Sure can. Our website is www.stopsmartmetersbc.com, and my email address is director@stopsmartmetersbc.com. And Jim, as you know, I send out regular updates keeping people informed. And if they would like to receive an update, all they have to do is send me an email with update on the subject line, and I would be happy to add them to my list.
Sharon, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
It was a pleasure, Jim. Thank you very much. I so appreciate it.
My guest has been Sharon Noble, Director of the Coalition to Stop Smart Meters in BC. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. You can also find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Thanks for listening. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.